Hello friends, how are you? Hope you are doing well. Welcome back to your own channel Geeky Sanjay. Today I am very excited to share my latest Java Spring Boot interview with Microsoft developer who have a 15 years of experience. Let's get started. The first question he asked me as usual what is your about me. So I have just given the my introduction, and then the question comes like why should organization adopt the frameworks like Spring and Spring Boot instead of developing their own custom framework in Java directly? So this is the frame in Java directly. So this is there is no right and wrong answer for this, but I try to give my best there. So as you can see here, like time saving. Whenever why we are choosing any framework, because we can get the most boilerplate code with that, and whenever we are going for the Spring Boot, because we already have their dependency. Based on the dependency, most of the thing already auto configured, so it is very time saving. Next, I just told him about the security. So as Spring already provide the Spring security, with the help of security, we can do authentication and authorization. Then third point, I explain him support and documentation. So because this is it is too old, okay, and so whenever we are using any framework, so it has already well documented, and there has a community which is supporting it too long. So this is my the next point is the maintenance. So maintenance every whenever there are some bug come, okay, so and so we will get their we will get their patches immediately, okay. So it is very good to for the maintenance, maintainability, and the reliability. So why we are saying the reliability means it is already used for the many big companies like Amazon, Google. Okay, so whenever the big companies are using it, that means it is very reliable. Okay, and other end, if we are thinking like making your own framework can be time consuming and uses a lot of resources. It is also harder to keep it secure and reliable. So I have given him this answer, and he was quite agree with this, but I don't know because he want to listen something to me. Okay, so we discuss about around 10 minutes on this section. Then again, he just dig more deeper to ask me some questions. Okay, this is okay. This is for the time saving. This is for the security. Maintenance is also good. Reliability is also good. What else? What else? Why you want to like? If you are just thinking, you said me like you want to become a solution architect. So whenever you are creating any systems, so whenever you are choosing any framework, so what do you think about that framework? So what is important thing other than this? So I thought then next he asked me a follow-up question. Explain this is more detail. Okay. So after digging some times, I realized that there is a community support, because as we know, the Spring has a very old community support, like it is around more than 14 years old, and it is a very big community which is supporting to it. Okay, so I just come up with this point, and I think this is very important for him. So I told him because it is very old and there is a community support which is doing, so if we are thinking like there is any bug we are facing, so because it is very old, so maybe possible someone others already fix this. Okay, so that is good. This is transparent because this is open source. He want to listen from this is the open source software, and whenever the open source software we are using, that is good because that is transparent and more secure. So this is the point which he just trying to get from my mouth. And the next, I told him that there is another point. I just remember that project structure. So whenever we are using like Spring Boot, so there is a project structure which every developer has to follow. And why project structure is required? Because whenever the new guy came and onboard our project, so we don't have to explain everything, because if folder structure is common and it is used for many like different type many developer, okay, and it is created by the community, so everybody know because it is well known structure. So like if someone new join in the company, he also know where we have to keep controller, where we have to keep services. So this is the point he want to just listen from me, and then after 10 minutes he satisfied with the answer. The next question comes, what is the relationship between Spring and Spring Boot? So the Spring and Spring Boot have a close relationship, because we know, because Spring Boot made of Spring Boot just subset of a Spring. So I just started explaining using the Spring. First I taken a Spring and I told him, because Spring has provided us the like core framework, look, core features in the framework. Core feature, like they have provided many different modules. Like we can say that is the Spring Starter Web, and then it is provided as the Spring Starter JPA, data JPA, String and Spring Starter. We have another like security. Okay, so we have very modules given by the Spring Boot, but there is a problem with the Spring Boot, because whenever we are there is a problem with the Spring whenever we are doing with the Spring any project. So we have to do manual configuration, and that is very time consuming. Okay, so I just told this about the Spring, and I come to the Spring Boot. So as we know, Spring Boot is like subset of the Spring. So internally it is using many extension of the Spring, like Spring Boot using the Spring Starter Web, okay, for using for the base structure MVC pattern. Whenever it is implemented a MVC pattern, it is taken from the Spring Boot. Okay, the next thing it is implemented and starter web. That one more thing is there, that is the very important thing about the Spring Boot, that is the server. So whenever we install the dependency Spring Starter Web, that time the Tomcat server is inbuilt inside of this. Okay, next auto configuration. So the biggest headache configure the thing from scratch, it's it's time consuming and it required very much expertise. Okay, but it is already auto configure, like we are just using the abstracted part whenever we are installing any dependency. So that time what it will do, it will auto configure all the thing. For example, whenever we install like a database, for the database we are using for SQL, and whenever we install the dependency, whenever we install the data JPA, so whatever connection and everything, it is already boilerplate code is available in the Spring Boot. So it will resolve our configuration issue. Then another embedded server, as I told you, it is supporting like it will come with this, but if you want to use the JT, then you have to install another dependency for that. Okay. The next I told him, it will provide us the starter templates. The starter templates, like whenever we are creating a project, so we do not have to do many settings and boilerplate code. We just simply go there on the Spring Initializer and we can create a template, and there is almost ready to deploy. Just we have to focus on the business logic. After giving this all the clarification, he was very happy with this, and just move to the next. Now the next third question come to me, what is the RESTful services? So the RESTful services, I explain him like REST API is like representational state transfer application programming interface, are a way for different software system to communicate over the internet. So what this means? This means like this is the set of rules. Okay, there are some standards, there are some styles which we have to follow, and whenever two system can be anything like two microservices. Whenever microservices communication to each other, it is just simply communicated using only a REST APIs. So that is called the different system. It can be anything. It can be mobile to computer or to machines or anything. Okay. So what is the REST? So I explain him about the REST. Like a REST is nothing. REST is a simple styles which will tells us how to like write our API to us. So that is written there. For example, it will tells like if we do not have to use action keyword whenever we are creating our APIs. So what we have to use? So normally we have to use like a there is a users. Okay, so we cannot use the get user. We have to use the users. Okay, so we have to keep it like neutral. So whenever we have to get any value, we simply use the users and we will pass the ID. We will get it the user ID. Whenever we have to edit, we have to use the same. Whenever we have to delete, we have to delete. We cannot write like delete user, get user, update user. That is not right. So that thing is written in the REST. That is the convention which we have to follow. It is not compulsory. It will work if we are writing there like get user, but that is not a right convention. That's why the everything is written in the REST rules. Another thing, like it will provide us the HTTP method post, get, put, delete. It will give us the like we can discuss. It just tell us like you have to communicate with other system using this HTTP method. So it will give us the support for these methods. And whatever API is there, it should not be stateful. It should be stateless. What it means? Like whenever we are calling one API, so we cannot like save any data on the server to just perform the API. Whatever we are sending, we have to send in a one shot, and whatever we have to get response, we have to take in the one shot. Like we have to avoid like a chatty API. Chatty APIs means what? First I call this user, then that user call another API, that API call another API. So this is called the chatty APIs because every API is dependent on another API. So we should not follow this. Whenever we are requesting something, we have to request in a one shot and take a response in a one shot. Even a response is very big, that's okay, but we should not use multiple API to get a single response. That means okay. And another in the REST, he just simply said whenever you are transferring data, you have to use the JSON and XML. So this 4 point I explained him, and he was happy with my explanation. Then the question 4 come to what feature or compatibility of Spring Boot make it easier for developer to create and deploy RESTful web services. So as you know, Spring Boot simplify the implementation of REST-based API in the several ways. So how it is doing like auto configuration. So what you mean to auto configuration? So I explain him. Auto configuration means whenever we are adding the dependency like Spring Starter Web. So by default, it is giving us the REST template for the RESTful API. So it is inbuilt in that, and that feature we will get without any additional library. So this is the one auto configuration. It is automatically set for the REST things. Environment it will set. It will give us the like a embedded server for us where we just run our API and we can check on the local only. So we don't have to deploy our code. Another thing like we can see annotation based. So he has given us many annotations like there is a REST controller is there, at REST controller is there, and request mapping is there. So I explain about both the thing. So like this is also a very important question. Like actually he not asked me because I already explained him what is the difference between REST controller and controller. So whenever we are using the controller, that time what happen whenever we are using the controller, that time whatever API we are creating, that time whenever it responds something, it responds and responds due to the browser, that is the view, not the JSON. Okay. And whenever we are using like a REST controller, so REST controller inbuilt has a two annotation. One is a controller, add controller, and another is a add request body. So whenever you just write it down, add REST controller, click on that, and you just go inside of that, and you can see two more annotations. So that both the things. So controller will tell this is the controller, and request body what it will do. it will sorry, response body, what it will do, it will simply, whenever the data is coming in the JSON, so it will convert that JSON in your domain object. Domain object means whatever we have created as an entity, that is our object. So whenever we are writing this, it will convert the data in object that we can directly use in our application. So this is the main difference between controller and REST controller. The next thing come to like what is the request mapping. So request mapping, like it is we can write on the class level and we can also write on the method level. Okay, so whenever we are writing it on the class level, that time we will defining the base URL of our application. So like above the class we have written the at REST controller and at request mapping. There we just write it down the URL of, like I have a URL like /API. So whatever URL I will use, whatever API I will create inside of that controller, the all method and the URL like a prefix is /API, then /user or /category, whatever is there, it will work like that. So because of that, we don't have to write this URL every time in every API. And another, I can write it down the same request mapping and the method level also. There if I write this, then we have to define the method, which type of method it is there, like it is get, post, put, delete. So this is the one thing. And if we do not want to again rewrite the same thing in the method, then they have given a different method to us, different mapping method, like get mapping, post mapping, delete mapping, put mapping, and fetch mapping. Okay, so these all the points I already explained him, and he was happy with this also. So the next question 5 number came to me. What is the use of the REST template feature in Spring Boot? Okay, so this is like same I told you, whenever we are doing like whenever we are installing the dependency, that is the web starter web, that time REST template is there. Okay, so same thing I explain here also. The REST template is class provided by the Spring. It is from the Spring framework that simplifies communication with RESTful web services. Okay, so what it will do, it will simply simplify the HTTP communication using the get, post, put, delete, and CRUD operations. CRUD operations means it will give us some method like get for object, post for object, put, and delete. So what it will do, whenever when we use this, normally we use it whenever we have to call the third party APIs. Okay, like normally first we will create our own API and we will just respond back to the user. So for that we have created our own database and we just link with that all the things. I will explain this in the next question. So here, whenever I have to call third party APIs means another microservices that I want to communicate with another microservices. Like I have my application where I just want to communicate with the user authentication services. So what I will do, I will take their APIs, I will use here using the REST template. So whenever we will use the REST template, because as I told you, it is not from the Spring Boot, it is coming from the Spring framework. So whenever I do the auto wire it, it will give me the error. For that, I have to first create the config file. In that config file, I annotate with at configuration, and then inside of that, I will write the return method using the REST template, and above that, I just annotate with 8 beans. Okay, so whenever the system started, application started, it will scan that beans and it will create beans for us. Next, what I will do, I will come in the service file, I will write it down at AutoWire and REST template. Whenever I have to simply like a call API, so I just create a URL and I will call this method. Like if I have to do the get, so go there and just simply write it down REST template dot get for object. So for get for object, it will accept two parameters. One is the URL, whatever we want to call the API, and second is your object, whatever class you have created. Like I have to call the user, because whatever is coming the response I have to convert in the which type of response. So I have to convert in the user. So I just pass the user dot class. Simple. So it will return me the same object whatever is required. So like this it will help. And also I explain him what is the get, what is the post, what is the put, what is the delete. This all the method I explain him. Like get we will use whenever we have to get the data. Post we will use normally whenever we have to create any record like a new request. Put we will use normally whenever we have to update the any records. And delete we will use to delete. But there is one more method, it is called patch. Okay, so the page is also used. So put and page, there is a difference between put. So he asked me what is the difference between page and put, why we are using these two for the update. So I explain him whenever we are using the page means we have to partially update the record, but whenever we are using the put, that time we have to completely change, we have to just replace the object whatever present there in the database. So he is happy with these changes, but he asked me a follow-up question. What is the difference between post and put? I already explained him and I was very confused. Why is just stressing this only one thing, post and put? Then again I explained the same thing second time. Then again he asked me the same question. Yeah, that is okay. I understand like what is the difference between put and fetch. But I don't know, I am unable to understand like what is the difference between post and put. So I just because I forget one a small thing there also. So and sometimes like 5 minutes we have discussed different way on this, and suddenly I asked him because I told him because whatever I use only to create a record for the post, and I use update for the put. Okay, so can you please guide me what you are expecting from my side? Then suddenly he told me that there is a minor difference whenever we are updating anything. Like post is okay whenever we are creating the record. Post will work the same like for the creating record only. But whenever we are updating any record and we are using the put, that time if record is there then it will update the record. But if record is not there then it will create that record. That is the point he want to like explain me. Okay, he want from my side, and I have read somewhere but I forget the time. Then I realized that yes, I was missing this point, and he just point it out only the single point. That's why we discussed around 5 to 10 minutes. So the next question comes to question 6. If given Spring Boot code, how would you implement a relation database? What are the high level steps for performing CRUD operations? So I explained him like I clear the requirement because I had some doubt about the requirement. Then I told him like you will give me the code, Spring Boot project, and then there is any like I have to just implement the database only. Yes, well, a database already created. You have to just connect the database, and you can start the CRUD operation. That you have to just give me the high level what steps you will follow. So I started as usual like first we have to install the dependency. There is two more important dependency that we have to install there. First is like we have to use the starter Spring starter data JPA, which will use for the Hibernate. And second we will use to we have to just install a dependency for the MySQL because he told me to just connect the SQL database. So this is first thing we have to do. Okay, so I just want to one more question here. He not asked me but I explain him. So as I told you, Hibernate. Okay, so what is the Hibernate? Hibernate is nothing. Hibernate is the ORM. Okay, so it is very important question. So the ORM, what ORM will do? ORM is doing nothing. It is like object relational model. Okay, mapping, object relational mapping. What it will do? It will do like whenever you have your object, so it will convert your object in the table. This is the task of the ORM. And what ORM we are using? We are using the Hibernate. Hibernate is the name of the ORM which we are using with the Spring Boot. There are different ORMs for the different technology like .NET is the different. Okay, but here we are using the Java. With that we are using the Hibernate. So this is the question, very important question. So I thought I should cover here also because he not asked me, but I explain him thoroughly how it will work like that. So So this is, so simply we can say ORM is nothing. ORM is a bridge between your object and relational database. Okay, simple, uh, simple explanation. So next I had told him the next thing is add configuration in application.properties. So you know we will add like we have there spring.data source dot URL. We will put it there URL, then spring.data source that user, then spring dot data source dot we will put the password is there. So we will put all the things there. So it will connect the database. This is the one thing we'll do. Third thing, create a base class and other entities using add entity. So as you know, we will create like first base class using the map super class at map super class, and I explain in why this map super class is there. In brief, I just explaining. Okay, and whenever we are creating our models, so every model we will extend the super class, and simply we just write it down add entity above the every models wherever we required table of that model. Okay, the next we will do, we will create a repositories for that. So what this repositories will do, we will just extend, we will create a class for the repository and we just expand the JPA repository, just okay, extended it. So what JPA repository will do, it simply it will just give us the many method which is not required. It is like with the Hibernate, okay, as I told you Hibernate. So it will give us many method to communicate with the database without writing any query. So here is the role of the Hibernate. It will provide us the HQL. Okay. So the another question comes in between. He not ask me, but I thought I explain you. So there is one more thing like HQL. What is the HQL? So HQL is not nothing query language, Hibernate query language. So as I told you, we are using the Hibernate here. Okay. So it is dependent on the Hibernate only. It is specific for the Hibernate. It is not common for all. Okay. There is one more like JPQL. Okay. So that is also like J um, JPQL something is there. Okay. So that is specific for the JPA related. So that is standardized. Okay. So whenever we are using the data JPA, it is come from there. But whenever we are using HQL, okay. So the HQL only use whatever Hibernate you are using. If we are using the ORM you are using, if we are using another ORM, then this HQL query will not work that with that. Okay. So that you just keep in mind. So it will provide us many method like we can just simply write it down user by ID, very common method it will provide us. And if we do not have the like a common method and we have to create some custom, so we just simply it will provide us the add query where we can write the query. Only the difference between both, this is looking like a same SQL, but the difference is that whenever we are writing the SQL query, there we are just writing the table and table name, but here we are just writing the class name and class column, class field in the query language. Like for example, whenever you create a user entity, so user entity, whenever we are creating a class, that is the U capital. Okay, but whenever it is converted in the table, the user U is small. Okay, so whenever we either we can change the name, we can write it down like user underscore self or something. Okay, so whenever we will write the query, that time we will not use the table name, we will use the user caps, U caps user. Okay, and whatever field name we have given, field name we will write it here. For example, we are using the name here. Okay, and we want the name inside of the table like a username. So we can write it down at notation at column name equals to username. So that username will be right in the table, database table. But whenever we are querying anything, writing a custom query, we will not write the username. We will write a name only because that is written in your entity. So whenever we are writing any query, we will use only whatever we define in the class. That is the basic difference you have to understand. Okay. And other than this, I explain more annotation to him. Like whenever we are creating an entity, we have a we have another entity that called table, add table. So what add table will do, we will just change the our table name in the database using the add table. And we do not you want to use the add table, then simply we can write in the entity itself. We just write the entity attribute name equals to whatever table name you want to do, you can write it down. Another annotation we can use in the entity, like that is around add join column. So whenever like we have a relation, okay, cardinality. So there is also more annotation for the cardinality, like whenever we are using the reference variable, okay, like reference object. In the user we are writing something like category, or we are writing something else, roles, okay. So there what we will do, there we will write annotation like at one to one, one to many, many to one, many to many, okay. So whenever we are writing these annotations, same what it will do, whenever we are writing, it is doing the joins, okay, internally whenever we are calling any data from there. So whenever it's doing the joins, that time it will use the join column name. So we can specify. If we are not specify, it will take uh, default whatever is there, okay. But if we want to specify something, we can write add join column, and we can write the name, which name, like user id we want to be, you just join that using the user id. So that is one more annotation is there. So I explain all the annotation whatever is there present for this. So next I told him we have create a repository, then we will create service file, and then we just auto wire repository and use the repository, and whatever is required, we will take data from the repository and use in our business logic. And another thing I told him also, I don't want to be like left anything from there. So I told him like we also can create a DTOs. Based on the DTOs, we can use the response request object, and that create the next. After this, we create a controller, and we will call the method from service to controller. And if we are creating some method RESTful APIs there also, our APIs, so we can use the REST controller and request mapping, as I already explained you about this. So I explain in very detail, okay. So he not ask me anything, like he not ask me to write code, because after my explanation he was very happy. He knows you already working and you created many project on it, and you have all the knowledge about it. So just we move to the next question. Question 7. What is the difference between eager loading and lazy loading? Okay. So, so whenever he asks me, he has not defined a specific thing. So there is something doubt in my mind, because whenever we are just listen the question, we cannot directly give the answer. Okay, because it may be a different he is asking, because same incident happened with me whenever I just attempting the React interview for Infosys. There he just asked me like you have to create like a matrix, okay, matrix in sense. So I thought I have to create the matrix in the React. So I thought I have to create a matrix. She told me like 4 by 4 matrix you have to create, and the React you have to display, and like you have to display the table, and like every column we have like one check mark. So I thought I have to create this using like CSS. So I use the Flexbox. I created immediately. I start coding, and after 5 minutes, he just looking everything, and then again he just told me what you are doing. So I told you, you just said me to just create a matrix. So I'm creating a matrix using the CSS. So she told, no, 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 I don't want like this. I want like you create 2D array, and then you just print that 2D array. So same thing I want to avoid here also. So I first I clarify with him, but I think he has not given me answer. So first I started with lazy loading and eager loading with the class. So I give an example in whenever we are creating a singleton, that time what is whenever we are just creating instance, okay, at the time of, so whenever class load that call the eager loading, and whenever we do not want that eager loading, then what is the like what is the loss whenever we are eager loading. Then I explain him, I will create instance, and then I will create the another method, and I will just create instance there based on the whatever null values there. I will create this. This is called the lazy loading. So he told, yeah, yeah, good, good. So I told, this is the one way I explain. I told him this is the one way I explain. Another is in the Hibernate, because you have not clear here. That's why I just explained that scenario here. And I thinking you are thinking about the Hibernate. So in the Hibernate, there is also eager and fetchy load. Lazy loading is there. Okay. So what is the eager loading is there? Like eager fetch. It's called the eager fetch. Okay. So eager fetch means whenever we are calling like a user and category, there is two entities there. And if we are calling the categories, okay, like product and category, we will keep two entities. So whenever we are calling the category, that time whatever products, okay, like sub entity attached with that, it will automatically call. That is called the eager loading. It is calling in the one shot. So this is one. Second, lazy loading. So what is the lazy loading? So lazy loading means I told him whenever we are calling the category, that time it will not call. It will call only whenever we first time load the users. Okay, and again if you call the category, then it will autofill in that. So this is called the lazy loading. So he told me, okay, so just give me the example where it will use. So I given him example like whenever we want to categorize, we have want to display our product with the category. First we have to show the category above, and then we have to show the product. That time we can use the eager loading. Otherwise, lazy loading is good, because if I'm doing the eager loading, immediately it will fetching too many things, and then the lazy loading. It, whenever it's required, that time I can do the lazy loading. So he's okay with me, but not completely like agree, because he want to listen something from me. As I already two times faced the same situation, and he again start digging the things. He want me just ask me follow up question to me. When should we not use lazy loading and instead use eager loading? Okay, and explain this from a technical perspective rather than a user perspective. Technical perspective means how it is helpful using the technically, not user like display and that thing. I don't want that. Just give me anything. Can you come up with any example which you can show me? So yes, I told him. I just started thinking what should be. Then suddenly I realized that there may be a performance optimization. I read somewhere, so that is very useful, performance optimization, but it is not related to the user directly. It is related to technical things. So I told him like it is performance optimization, and you have a user entity and related post there. So there is whenever we have to avoid n+1 problem. Okay, so we will use this. So what is the n+1 problem? So whenever we are doing the lazy loading, can cause the n+1 select problem, where a single query is followed by multiple additional queries. Eager loading fetch all required data in one query, reducing database round trips. So like whenever we are doing fetch loading, so it is going for the problem n+1. Okay, and whenever we are doing the eager loading, it is immediate loading everything. It is not like a uh, it is not doing like extra HTTP request. It's not calling. Okay. For example scenario, we can see like you have a user entity and related post entity, and you fetch 10 users with a query. For each of the 10 users, a separate query fetches their post. First, we will fetch 10 users. 10 fetching is going there. Okay. Instead of one query to fetch all necessary data, we are end up with the 11 queries, 1 plus n, okay, causing a significant performance hit due to the multiple database round trip. Like whenever we are using the like a eager loading, so we are just sending one request. In a one request, it will take some time. There is some latency, but it will fetch all the record, and we are avoiding 10 different requests to get other all 10 users. Okay, so if we want to use the like first time we call simply lazy loading and we get the data, okay, calling one user, okay, and whenever we require the related data, then we have to call, we have to apply like a we have to apply loop there, okay, and we have to call 10 users based on the id. So it is called, whenever we can do using one request, we are doing using the 11 requests. So this is called a n plus 1 problem, okay. So if like if this is the scenario, that time it is good, we will use the eager loading instead of the lazy loading. So this is the question, this I explained him and he was very happy with this. So we move to the next question, and very important question, how is exception handling made easier in Spring Boot application? Okay, so I explain him like how it is easier. First we, because whenever we are getting any like errors, okay, exception. So what is the exception? Exception is nothing basic we can say exception whenever there is some unexpected event is happening, okay, which we are not expecting, it is called the errors or exceptions, okay, and we have to handle this exception in very delicate way. Like whenever we are getting any exception from the system, it is very unknowingly, we don't know what they are saying, okay, and it is not user friendly. So for that, what we can do, we can write a custom exception classes, okay, there we just extend the run exception runtime exception class or exception class and create a new exception custom extension for us, and there we can pass the string whatever message we have to pass to the user, that is the user friendly, okay, it is not exact whatever system required. So that we can do. Another thing we can do like a handle using package block. So whenever we are using in the services and we are throwing, because we should not handle any error inside of the services, okay, uh, this is the convention. Whenever we are just handling this, we should handle in the top level, okay. So what we will do from the services, we throw the error and doing using the signature method signature. Then whenever we are going on the controller, there we will call the same method, that time it will throw the exception. So there we can handle this exception using the try catch block. So this is the one way which we can handle this. But there is a problem with this using this, because if we have a thousands of methods, so everywhere we have to be redundant code, try catch, try catch, try catch, and it is very hard to maintain if we have a very big code base. So what we can do, we can like write it down the exception handler annotations. With the exception annotation handler, what it will do, simply we will write it down there. We will create a one function there in method inside of the controller, and we write it down at exception handler annotation, and we can remove all the try catch block. For every exception, we can write it down the exception handler, like runtime error, null pointer error, that we can create. So whenever in that controller the error will come, it will directly catch by this method. So we don't like, we have a 15 method inside of that. Instead of writing 15 try catch block, we can write, because maybe this is 5 type of exception. So this we can create simple 5 method there using the exception handler annotation, but different exception. So we can avoid 50 try catch block. This is the one thing I explain him. Another thing I explain him, this is also for the big database, like big code base, it's not good, because we have a many controllers and we don't know where we are handling which exception. So what we can do, another option we have, we can create a global class for the exception. Okay, so there we just simply write 8 component annotation there, and what we will do next, we will write it down like controller advice, head controller advice. So what controller advice will do, that will whatever error is happening, exception is coming in our application, first it will go to that uh, class and it will show from there. There we can use again exception handler inside of the class, and we can simply, we have a 5 or 6 type of exception, so we can write all the exception methods there and we can handle there. So we have centralized the exception. In the future, if we want to change something, we can change easily instead of going on every controller or every method. So this is the best way to handle the exception. So I explained everything, and he was happy with my like. Rarely it happened in my interview. He was happy because 3 times he was digging too much, and I also was very happy. He is agree with my whatever I explained there. So the next question comes to me, question 9. How does dependency injection help in Spring Boot applications? Okay, so I explaining like there is like using IOC inversion of controller container. Okay, so what it will do, it will simply manage our beans lifecycle method. Okay, and it will help us to inject whenever is required dependency using the dependency injection DI will tell us, and it will create a manage beans and dependency injection life cycle method it will manage. And so I explaining, so he's okay. When I told him it will provide like annotation at configuration at beans whenever we have to create a custom beans, we can write it down like this. So he said okay. The next follow-up question come to me, what does IOC means and what are the different type of IOC container? So he asked me why we are saying IOC. IOC means inversion of controller. So what is it means exactly? So I explain him the IOC is nothing. IOC is the name suggests IOC means inversion of controller. So we are inverted our controller. So by default normally simple flow what will happen if we are not using the IOC? We will create a class like we have a order and another we have a invoice. Okay. So invoice class we have to create one instance of the order. So what we will do? Traditional way simply we will create a instance of the order inside of our invoice like a new order. Okay, this is the one way. And what we will do whenever like we have to pass some dependency, we will do it manually. So this we are managing. So I told him we don't want to manage this. We want to give this to do someone else. So I told IOC container, please help me and do my task whenever required. You just put these things, you create a beans and you inject the dependency whenever it's required. So why I tell to IOC container? Because whenever I will create and manually maintain this thing. That time maybe happen we have a order and right now, but in the future it is a online order or offline order. It may be a split. When if I just calling this creating this stance in the multiple classes, so what I have to do there? Every classes I have to go there and I have to change because now it is not a order. It is in the two different. So I have to think about where I am using the online and where I am using the offline. Okay. So why it is happen? Because it is tight couple. We are coupling tight invoice with the order. Okay. So whenever I am giving my control to IOC, IOC what it will do? It will do the loose couples. Okay. So if this scenario happen in the future, IOC container will create and manage all the things. We don't have to worry about. It will give us, it will create a beans and it will simply inject whatever is required. Only we have to add the annotation there, the priority annotation. That's it. So that is our job. So our job we has given to the Spring Boot in the Spring Boot IOC container. So this is means of the IOC container. So again he asked me like how many types of IOC container are there. So as you can see here we have a two type of IOC container. One is the Bean Factory, another is the application context. So what is the Bean Factory? What is the application context? Like Bean Factory is a very basic IOC container. There it will create only beans and basic dependency injection at the time of starting your app. Another we have a application context. Application context is more advanced and we will use it for the like we have enterprise edition enterprise applications. There we will use this. Okay, because it is giving. So what is application context? Application context is nothing. It is like a sub interface of the Win Factory, and it is a sub interface of the Win Factory means it is implemented the Win Factory, and whatever Win Factory has the basic functionality, it is already inside of the application context and it will give us the more facility. Like whenever event propagation happen, it will maintain that thing. Another thing, declarative mechanism to create a beans. Like as I told you, we using the add configuration and add beans. Whenever we are writing this, this is the declarative. Okay. So declarative means we are declaring, we are saying you create this bean, custom beans. I am saying to you. Okay. So this is done by the application context. Another thing, it will do the AOP features. Okay. So what is the AOP? This is also important question comes. Okay. So I just want to explain very little bit because we already delayed. So the AOP is aspect oriented programming. So what is aspect oriented programming? Because normally we listen, oops, like object oriented programming. What is this new thing scam? So the aspect object programming is nothing. It is like a helping hand for the oops. So whenever we are creating a oops and using the oops, we are creating our like uh, components. Okay. So it is creating, it is reusable component we have created. Okay. But there is something in between that. Okay. Like any functionality which we required in the multiple classes. Okay. So like it can be like I'm calling this method or that method. Before that method, I have to call the security feature. It has to check the security. Or I am calling method A, method B. Both the method, whenever I am calling, I have to call login. Okay, so like this type of method we cannot achieve using the oops. So that type of things we can achieve using the AOP, like aspect oriented programming. Okay, how we can achieve this? Simply when we have to just install one dependency AOP there, and after creating the dependency we will create a class. There we just annotate with add component for the beans, and we just write it down add aspects. After doing that, whatever method, like I have a one method that is the get user, and whenever the get user is invoked, get user can be multiple places. Okay, so it is splitting in multiple classes. So wherever it is present, I want to log something before calling this and after finishing this something. Okay, so what I will do there, I will just write it down there, point cut. Okay, so there is a one more annotation in the AOP before and after where you want to call that code. So I just write it down before, and then whatever I have to I will write a point cut inside of that. Point cut means simply I will tell him in this, I will give the path, this directory, this class name, and this method. Whenever it called, I have to log this, I have to print this log in the logger. That's it. Or I have to like security, do the security check, user authenticated or not. That we can do. Okay. So we can do for the single method. We can do for the multiple method because it provided like star and double dot with the combination of star and double dot. I'm not going in very deep, but I'm just explaining. So if you also encounter with this AOP, so you can explain at least this much. If you explain this much, that is more than enough for him. You know the AOP, what is the AOP. Okay, so there simply we can create a multiple combination, and we can target multiple same classes in multiple different files. Okay, and packages. So this is the AOP. I thought I should explain this. So this is AOP. And another thing, one more question comes in my mind. I want to explain you. Please bear with me. I know it is too much time now, but I just want to give you some important questions. So we can say simply that is the main class where we have a one main method, and we annotated the main method with the add application, Spring Boot application. Okay, whenever we will get this setting, that time our application start from that class only. Okay, this is simple thing. Why this add app Spring Boot application? So whenever we write it down, it has a three annotation inside of this. Whenever you just go there, okay, whenever you just open your project and go there in the application file we have there, click on this and you will get three annotation inside of this. First annotation is add configuration. Second is add auto configuration, enable auto configuration, and third one is add component scan. Okay, so first one is like a configuration. What it will do, it will check the configurations whatever is doing. Then enable auto configuration, or what it will do, whatever dependency we install using the POM file, and like for the database and everything, so it will enable all auto configuration, and it will inject the all boilerplate code, which is you don't have to write like connection for the database. It will automatically insert it in there. And third thing, very important thing, is component scan. What component scan? Whenever our application is started, it will scan for the beans. So scan for the beans, there it will find it out some annotations like 8 component, 8 services, 8 controller, 8 rest controller. These are the annotations which will tell him these are the bins which it has to create at the time of starting the application. So this is the very important question which I want to mention here. Then next we move to the last question, that is question number 10. What are the cascading type in JPA? Explain a few with example. So I was expecting this question also, because I study like this only. Okay, I will tell you what is my study plan for this after this slide. Okay, so as you can see, we have some common cascading types here. First, we have a all. So what is cascading? As you remember, in the SQL, we seen these things. This cascading we are defining in the tables. Whenever we are creating the table, we create a cascading type. Cascading is nothing. Whenever we have an entity and we have a sub entity. Okay, so whenever we are updating our entity, sub entity also will be updated. Like whenever we are removing, like we have their orders, okay, and products. Okay, so whenever we are removing the products, order should go with that product. Or we have a category and product. Whenever we are removing the category, all product related to the category should go delete. This is called the cascading that we define in the SQL in the table. Same thing here, we are using the Hibernate. Okay, so it is creating the table. So we have to define where we can define this. We can define this in the your models, and which field, whatever field is there. Okay, there you just write it down there, cascading. And type you can define like all, persist, merge, remove, refresh, detach. This 6 type is there. He asked me 4, but I just given him 6. Okay, so all, what all will do, all normally cascade all operations. Okay, it will persist, merge, remove, refresh, detach, everything. Okay, and the next is there like a persist. So what is the persist? Persist means add. Like whenever we are adding something, okay, so the other related entities also add their records in there if it is related to that. That is the persist, like save. Next we have like a merge. Merge is ensure that change made to associate entities are propagate when the owing entry is merged. Like whenever we are merging in the main entry, so whatever related entry, that is also merged. Okay. Next we have a remove. Whenever we are deleting the main one, whatever related to this, okay, wherever using that ID, that all entities should be removed. Okay, same we have a refresh and detach. Detach means we are detaching, like we are removing that sub entity from the main one. Okay, unlocking. So same thing we are detaching, and whenever we are attaching, same it should be attached. And refresh means it will refresh on the database. These are the common questions. He asked me 10 questions, so I replied in like my best. I given my best there, and hope you also understand and it is helpful to you. Then he has given me the feedback. My interviewer name is the Amit Sukla. It is from the Microsoft with the 15 years experience. He given me the like a feedback, a very good feedback. Sanjay has a very good understanding of the Java Spring Boot concept, and that was visible during the mock session where he was able to answer most of the questions. He was able to support his answer with example, and his explanation was elaborate. Okay, and he just given me some advice like Sanjay must capitalize on the strong foundation he has built of Java Spring Boot and must practice and explore advanced feature. While he is already a seasoned front-end developer, he is already progressing well on backend. He must also explore on the cloud concept, native cloud development and DevOps concept. Like he want me to be for the advanced concept, like how distributed system is working. As I told him, I'm already doing the HLD, and maybe in some time I will be doing this all the things. And he has given me like I cleared this interview, and he has given me a strong hire. So how do I prepare for my interview? So I spent 3 days, only 3 days, not much. Okay. I spent only 3 days reviewing my notes on LLD4 to refresh my knowledge. I have created around more than 200 pages notes in detail. It will not take you like much time. I'm not going from starting to end. Okay. I taken some questions from the internet and the mock. As you can see, I also read previous mock questions, and I just taken help of the chat GPT for the answer, and same whenever I read from the chat GPT, same I am reading from my notes also, because in my notes everything in very detail. And thanks to the instructor, okay, he has given very good knowledge about the LLD that I have written there. So I match with that also. Whatever I am reading from the this chatbot, it is perfectly fine, or we can get more data from there. So I practice myself like this only. Okay. I also practice like creating a API and CRUD operation using JPA repository and REST API from scratch. But important point, without looking any resource, without using ID auto completion, because I already faced this the same situation in my Java interview, first Java interview, where I failed it. I will link that video here, okay, where you can see what mistake I did. So I don't want to repeat the same mistake. So what I did, I read the theoretical and I did a practice also, but without using the auto completion. Whenever I am writing the controller, REST controller, I will typing everything, okay, and I'm looking not here and there. I'm just getting the errors and I'm fixing it, getting the error, fixing it. I'm not going there in the repository, seeing and just copy pasting. No, you have to write yourself. Whenever you create one project from scratch, and you just create two APIs for the data persistent and two APIs for the REST template from the outside API. Like you can use like a demo API, any demo API. Okay. So whenever you create a simple project, na, your confidence on the next level. Please do the practice. Code practice is very much required. Okay. That I did it here. And also I read the previous mock questions that helped me a lot. Thanks to my friend, he shared me, and I also will share with you all the questions. So that's it for today's video. If you learned something from this video, make sure you hit the like button, press the bell icon and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and check out my website geekysanjay.com for more tech notes. The link in the description below. Thank you.